Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Justin and Donald? No, Donald's not here. It's just Justin. Justin and Donald Save America. But today it's going to be Justin Saves America by himself. Donald is busy doing God knows what. Probably taking care of that kid of his or something. I don't know. He's actually probably preparing for our full episode that we're going to be recording shortly. But I wanted to jump on here and I wanted to provide you all with an update about something really important that I've found about the meeting that's happening, COP26 in Glasgow, and some really interesting information that I found out about banks and how and climate change and how banks are trying to impose climate change on the entire world. It's crazy stuff, and I'm really excited about sharing it with you. Every once in a while, I'm going to be producing these videos that are sort of videos and podcasts that are kind of a standalone, quick hit type thing, not a full episode like Donald and I will do when we get together. When I come across something really interesting, and this is going to be the first one in that series. So I'm really excited, but before we can get to that topic, I want to encourage you, please hit the like button on this video if you're watching on YouTube. Please share this audio clip if you're listening to the podcast version on iTunes or Spotify or somewhere else, because we need your help. The algorithms on YouTube and other social media, they're not going to help us out. They're not doing us any favors. We need your help. We need your support. So please hit the like button and please subscribe to our channel, Justin and Donald Save America. It's a brand new channel. We're really excited about it. We think you're going to absolutely love the content that we come up with. So please hit that subscribe button and that like button. All right. Let's get on to the topic. There's this really incredible thing that's happening right now in Glasgow. All right, it's called COP26. It's this major international climate conference. You'll probably remember COP21. That's maybe one of the most famous COP meetings. And COP stands for Conference of the Parties. The whole purpose of this is to get government leaders from all over the world together, and you get a bunch of activists and political, other ideological groups and corporations and banks and all these other people that come to these big meetings. But the idea is to get the governments all together so that they can battle the scourge of climate change, because climate change, of course, is an existential crisis that's going to wipe out all of humanity, according to the people who go to COP26. At least that's the political talking point that they use. If you actually look at the science, regardless of whether you're looking at someone who is a believer in this idea that humans are the primary cause of climate change and that climate change is a huge problem, the science does not support the idea that it's an existential crisis. But that's a video for another time. The purpose of the COP26 meeting is to get all of these countries together to make climate change commitments. COP21 was the really big, one of the most famous meetings. That's the one that produced the Paris Climate Agreement, the Paris Climate Accord. You've probably heard about that. That was a huge, huge deal during the Obama era, again, back in 2015. And people are expecting that at this COP meeting, COP26, there's going to be another Paris Climate Agreement-like agreement, or a Paris Climate Agreement-like proposal, resolution, accords, whatever you want to call it. The bottom line is, these things don't actually have a whole lot of teeth to them typically. Now, I guess it's possible that this one might have a little bit more, but typically they don't have much teeth, which is why the Paris Climate Agreement didn't actually accomplish very much. The people who went to the Paris Climate Agreement and signed it, the vast majority of those countries did not reduce their CO2 emissions to the levels that they promised that they would when they signed the agreement. And many of the countries that either signed the agreement or then agreed to it in some fashion later on or whatever have actually dramatically increased their CO2 emissions since that period of time. Like China, for example. China has been increasing its CO2 emissions. Lots of the developing world, in addition to China, has been increasing their CO2 emissions. So people like to talk at the Paris Climate Agreement or at Paris and COP21. They like to talk in Glasgow at COP26. But that doesn't mean that these meetings don't matter. They do matter. They matter because there's lots of stuff going on behind the scenes that you don't see that actually does have teeth and repercussions for your real life, for your life. It's not just theoretical. It's not just hypothetical. It's real. And so I want to talk about one of the really important things that's going on in Glasgow right now that you're probably not hearing from the mainstream press, who is going to be focused on the actual framework that comes out of COP26 that the governments agreed to. But don't be fooled by that. Pay attention to what's going on behind the scenes. That's where the real action is. So one of the things that's important, and this isn't the only thing, but one of the most important things happening at Glasgow is something called the Glasgow Financial Alliance for Net Zero. Now, this is a group that sort of is been put together by people affiliated with the United Nations and with corporations and with businesses and all sorts of other things. But the purpose of this organization is, or this alliance, is to get as many people in the finance industry globally to agree to impose the terms of the Paris Climate Agreement, or even stricter terms than that, on the world, regardless of what governments do. And they want to do it through the power of the financial system. Now, what is the financial system? When I say the financial system, what do I mean by that? I don't just mean banks, although they are involved. And I don't just mean Wall Street, although there are many people on Wall Street involved in this. It also involves insurance companies. It involves pensions. It involves all kinds of people who are just broadly related to the finance industry globally. This Glasgow Financial Alliance for Net Zero, which you've probably never heard of unless you heard my radio appearance on Glenn Beck yesterday. You probably never heard of the Glasgow Financial Alliance for Net Zero. But this is a group that has, let me make sure I get the number right, but I think it's 300. Yeah, 300 financial firms have already agreed to be part of this Glasgow Financial Alliance for Net Zero. And the total assets under management for these 300 firms is $90 trillion. 90 trillion with a T, not billion, $90 trillion. It's absolutely incredible, the amount of wealth that these people control. Now, what are they pledging to do? What is the purpose of this alliance? What are they trying to accomplish? Well, the purpose of the alliance, according to the alliance, is to use their power to coerce and force and impose the ideas of the Paris Climate Agreement and other agreements on the entire global economy, or certainly the economy in the West, using the financial system. So this comes directly from the Net Zero Banking Alliance. This is part of the Glasgow Financial Alliance for Net Zero. It's a sort of a subgroup that just is the alliance for the banks. According to their website, each bank has pledged to, quote, transition all operational and attributable GHG, that's greenhouse gas, emissions from our lending and investment portfolios to align with pathways to net zero by mid-century or sooner, including CO2 emissions reaching net zero at the latest by 2050. Now, what does this mean exactly? This is really important to keep in mind. This isn't just about, putting solar panels on the roof of the corporate headquarters, okay? Or making sure that all of, Bank of America's vehicles, company cars are, Teslas or something, or electric vehicles. That's not really what this is about. Read the language carefully. Okay, and this, by the way, is supported by lots of other evidence. But read this language here. This is ironclad proof of what I'm about to lay out. They want to transition all operational and attributable greenhouse gas emissions from our lending and investment portfolios to align with pathways to net zero by mid-century or sooner. So think about that. Lending and investment portfolios are going to become net zero. Well, what does that mean? It means that if you want to get a bank account with one of these banks that's part of the Net Zero Banking Alliance, and I'm going to name some names a little bit later on, but if you want to be part of this alliance, at some point in the or you want to bank with a bank that's in this alliance, at some point in the future, you're not going to be able to do that. You're not going to be able to get a bank account with them, a checking account, a savings account, a business loan, maybe even a mortgage or a personal loan or even a credit card. You're not going to be able to get these things from a member bank if you're not doing enough to fight climate change. So maybe you're a business, maybe you're a small business, and maybe you've got a restaurant. When you deliver food at that restaurant to customers who buy, they order food and you deliver it. Maybe you're a little mom and pop pizza shop or a bakery or something. And I don't know, you have a delivery service as part of what you do. Maybe you're a caterer. I don't know. There's a whole bunch of businesses that would have vehicles that deliver things, right? Do you have electric cars? No? Well, then you can't bank with us. Oh, you're buying a building for your new, little store that you want to open up that sells outdoor equipment. Does the building run on solar panels? Windmills? No, it doesn't have a renewable energy source powering it. Well, then, we can't give you that mortgage, or we can't give you that loan, or we can't insure your business, or we can't let you get a mortgage on that house that you want. We're not going to do any business with you at all unless you agree to go along with the Paris Climate Agreement and other things, other agreements like that. All right. You got to go green or we're not going to do business with you. And again, this isn't just about banks. This is insurance companies. This is asset managers. This is pension funds. They're all saying, if you want to do business with us, you're going to have to be in line with our left-wing ideas. Now, right now, this is focused primarily on climate change. Okay, that's the goal. It's focused primarily on climate change, but this could be anything. This could transform into anything. It could be climate change. It could eventually become, are you devoted to, racial equity? Are you devoted to teaching critical race theory? Are you devoted to, you name it, promoting single-payer healthcare? The list goes on and on and on. This could literally be anything. It's a tool for people to impose their ideas on other people, or to at least impose their policies on other people without actually having to pass a law by elected representatives in government. It's discrimination, essentially. They're discriminating against certain kinds of businesses and certain people based on their beliefs about things that may not have anything to do with their business. For example, a bank could theoretically say in the future at some point, yeah, I know you want a loan, but our understanding is that your business has been very vocal about being opposed to, fighting climate change, or being opposed to fighting against single-payer healthcare or whatever. And we don't like that because, you're opposed to something that violates, you're opposed to a policy that we believe is an integral part of our values as XYZ Bank. So we're not going to give you a loan. You're going to have to either change your policies or you're going to have to find a different lender. But the problem is, these banks, there's so many of these banks all over the world, and they're so powerful and they're so large that eventually the goal is to make it so that you're not going to be able to find a bank that has your values. You're going to have to be in line with the values of these groups like the Net Zero Banking Alliance. There are 84 large banks all over the world that have already signed up for the Net Zero Banking Alliance. They are spread across 36 countries. They control 64 trillion, again, trillion with a T, $1 trillion in assets, 64 trillion. And in America, some of the banks that are involved are some of the largest banks in the entire country. In fact, 4 out of the 5 largest banks in America are part of this alliance, and the alliance is growing rapidly. 3 banks that in the list that I'm about to read to you joined as recently as October. So the banks in America that are involved in this Net Zero Banking Alliance are Amalgamated Bank, Bank of America, Citi, JP Morgan Chase, Morgan Stanley, Goldman Sachs, and Wells Fargo. Amalgamated Bank, Bank of America, Citi, JP Morgan Chase, Morgan Stanley, Goldman Sachs, and Wells Fargo. Now, I don't know where you bank, and I don't want you to tell me where you bank, frankly, but I can tell you from my own personal experience that I know lots of people in my family. In fact, most of the people that I know in my family bank with at least one of these banks. And I have had bank accounts with two of them and a credit card with one of the others. That's three of the banks on this list. And I used to have a bank account with another one that was on this list. That's 4 out of the 7 banks. Because these banks are so large and because so many households have some affiliation with this, if all of these banks actually start imposing this policy and then other banks join them, then you're going to have the demands of the Paris Climate Agreement. And again, whatever else they want to make this, whatever else they want to turn this into, you're going to have it regardless of what happens in Congress, regardless of what happens in the White House. It won't matter who's in charge of Congress. It won't matter which party is running things. If all of these banks are on the same page and they're all imposing their will on the rest of the country, there's nothing that we're going to be able to do about it as long as we continue to operate within this system and as long as we don't have government regulations that protect against this kind of discrimination. So there's a whole lot more that I could say and I get into, and we probably will do this on another episode, probably bring in Donnie for that so that he can provide his insights and research and the things that he's been doing. But if you're interested in this topic, if you want to learn more about it, I urge you to check out the work that Glenn Beck has been doing on the Great Reset. It goes into a lot of this stuff. All of this stuff ties into the Great Reset. Also, get the book. Pre-order the book right now that Glenn Beck and I wrote about the Great Reset. It's called The Great Reset, so you can't confuse it. The Great Reset, Joe Biden and the Rise of 21st Century Fascism. It is so good. You're going to love it. So please pre-order it now. You can get it on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, all the big booksellers. Please pre-order it now because there's all sorts of supply chain issues that might get in the way of getting a copy of the book, a physical copy of the book, if it sells out when it gets released. The release date is, I think, January 11th. I should probably know this. It's in January. I know that. The middle of January, right around the time when the great people of the World Economic Forum and others who are all involved in the Great Reset are going to have an annual meeting in Davos. So it's really perfect timing to release a book about the Great Reset. We're really excited about it, and we're going to cover so much of this kind of stuff in the Great Reset. You're going to totally understand why the world is rapidly changing the way that it is. You can also, of course, go to stoppingsocialism.com, and at the top of that website, there's a tab for the Great Reset, all kinds of articles that deal with this kind of stuff there, as well as quotes and things like that. Really powerful information. Please check that out, and go to Stopping Socialism TV on YouTube, and you'll find all kinds of amazing videos that Donald and I have done about the Great Reset for Stopping Socialism TV, which is another project that he and I are involved in. So please check those things out, and please subscribe to our channel, like our channel, share our content, and help the world learn more about the Great Reset and all of the absolutely crazy things that are going on there. And one last thing, remember, don't pay attention to whatever the framework is that comes out of Glasgow. Pay attention to the other things that are going on behind the scenes, because that is where the really crazy stuff is going on.